I like superpowers, you probably do too. I like open world games, you most likely do too. What happens when you mix them together though? Well, you get Infamous, Prototype, Spider-Man, Saints Row, and a few more. Superheroes are huge in the entertainment industry. Open world games are huge in the gaming industry. Now why is it that there aren't many open world superhero games? Good ones anyways. I'll be talking about superpowers in open world games. I grew up on games like Infamous and Prototype. Two different but amazing games where you play as anti-heroes with unique and super cool powers that you can play around with in an open world environment or setting, where you can take on side missions however you want with these Super Saiyan godlike powers, or get into the deep story and lore of how this power exists and how it can corrupt an entity. Superpowers can essentially turn the world around you into a sandbox or a playground, where experimenting with different abilities and unlocks doesn't feel linear or like a chore. Okay, just a quick note, I won't be mentioning games like the Batman Arkham series nor the Just Cause series, mainly due to the characters not having proper supernatural abilities, instead relying on technology. Part of what makes open world superhero games appealing is the traversal. Look at Spider-Man. Doesn't it look and feel awesome to be web slinging across the city as fast as possible to your next location? Or Infamous, chaining together power lines with thrusters to get some momentum and then land on another power line to get from point A to B pronto. Usually, powers cut down the tedium of traversal in an open world, usually due to it being more compelling, skillful, and sometimes challenging, as well as entertaining to watch. Nothing like wall running and then Superman jumping into the air just to glide for a while in games like Saints Row or Prototype, or scaling up then bouncing off a skyscraper in Infamous Second Son. Plus, when is it that quick and stylish traversal isn't reliable when going from point A to B? One other thing I appreciate about these games is the excitement of elevation and most importantly, verticality. Being able to avoid ground level as much as possible and set on top of a building or skyscraper and getting an overview of the city or map. It's usually a rich sight to behold, like a clean slice of cheesecake. You just want to look at it forever and not mess it up, or in the game's case, not get down. Now let's talk about different types of traversal. You get vertical, horizontal, and or all-round of traversal. Vertical traversal obviously meaning navigating upwards, such as running up or grappling up buildings, mainly as fast as possible. And horizontal traversal being any way of moving directly forward, sideways or backwards, such as gliding or general flight, grappling in front of you, and more. Superpowers are usually used to fight crime, or gruesomely kill people sometimes, but superpowers can change the way you deal with combat in an open world game. Instead of hiding behind cover, shooting when the time is right, in games like Infamous 2 you can run around shooting enemies as well as get up close. Plus, superpowered combat looks a lot flashier than your generic or regular cover to cover shootouts. The way colors fly around and how quickly and flexibly you can move around the battlefield while still taking down enemies in style. Healing sources were all around you, meaning you could be running and shooting for damn near the entire battle without completely retreating from the fight to rely on automatic health generation. But then you get games like Prototype, where you need to attack mostly up close, with large arm blades, claws and fists. Like Infamous, there are healing sources all around you at almost all times, encouraging you to step out of your comfort zone and attack head on for the entire battle, while still being able to quickly move around the battlefield in stylistic and effective fashion. It's what makes combat so compelling and appealing. Another thing about superpowered combat in open world games is that it can sometimes use the open world sandbox around you. Like I mentioned earlier, with superpowers, the open world is more of a playground than ever before, using the sandbox to your advantage as either a weapon or something else useful. And while we're on the topic of using powers in a sandbox, we should also talk about the large variety of powers at our disposal. Unlocking new abilities for certain powers allows more ways of doing things in the sandbox. Maybe you can tackle certain objectives in more of a stealthy approach than before. Or maybe you can tackle certain objectives in a more tactical way, plan out scenarios or challenge yourself. Things like these allow for more experimentation from the player, whether it's learning a new, faster or reliable playstyle. Now while it's cool to be a freaking Super Saiyan, you don't want to have absolutely overpowered abilities that'll encourage you to basically cheat your way through side missions or the entire progression system. This is where balancing plays a huge role. Being too overpowered will cause boredom due to a lack of challenge, but being too underpowered will cause demotivation due to frustration. You must feel powerful and godlike but not invincible. There still needs to be limits in both combat and traversal, something that infamous Festival of Blood does extremely well. That boy Aqua explains this very well.
This is why flight works so well here. It is powerful yet limited. The only way to recharge your corruption meter is by biting down on an innocent bystander, and those are most commonly found at street level. Most of your traversal in the game takes place either in the air or at an elevated plane. Even the vertical grind poles reinforce that sentiment, as their only purpose is to get you to high ground. And I assume a lot of you want to move in a fluid motion, combining abilities with each other so your momentum is never killed. Using all of your corruption though isn't a good way to achieve this, since you'll have to stop on the ground, give someone a hickey, and then get back to high ground.
Especially with a powerful ability, it needs to be limited fairly, such as a cooldown or having to recharge via a source. It encourages players to still use other movesets that they've unlocked, so that they're not completely unused or underused. I feel that this is a very valid way of limiting the more overpowered abilities. Therefore, there's still a fair and, most importantly, dynamic challenge. Freshens up gameplay a little bit without making you feel like you've been stripped away of power or you've been made deliberately weaker. It also adds a little more depth to the overall gameplay. Superpowers are cool. Open world games with depth and variety are cool too. When you mesh these two together, you get amazing open world sandbox games with godlike powers that you can build and expand upon, and compelling gameplay and world building. But why are these games so underrated in such a large gaming industry? There's a huge audience for superheroes and open world games, but yet there aren't many open world games where you have superpowers. And when they are, they usually don't reach mainstream appeal. Why is that? That's a question I unfortunately cannot answer because I genuinely do not know. These type of open world games add another layer of freedom of movement and navigation, which would usually be a massive selling point because it makes free roaming much more interesting. But there's certain things that can't be answered, unfortunately. I hope you enjoyed this shorter video. I feel like this shorter video was appropriate in my situation because school exams are starting very soon, like next week soon. So videos will be a lot more sparse, unfortunately, since I like making videos for you guys. And therefore this means that during this time period I'll be pretty inconsistent. This year is gonna be so rough for my mentality, I swear. I've currently got a lot of videos that I'm writing for, that I'm writing scripts for. I don't know when I'm gonna get them out and what time period I'm gonna get them out, like maybe next week, maybe the next 2 weeks, I don't know. But anyways, if you enjoyed the video, drop a like, I guess. It's not required but much appreciated. If you like what you see, you're welcome to support with a subscription. Again, it's not required, but it is still very much appreciated. Everybody stay safe, stay entertained, take care, and take it easy. Cheers.